Well, hey everyone, welcome back with us. So glad you're here today as we continue week 2 of our teaching series, The Wisdom of Friendship. And we're posing a question to everyone these days. I'm going to pose it one more time for the sake of those who are new with us. Here at the beginning of the new year, when people make their resolutions and pursue their self-improvement goals, we've got a question, and it's this. What if this year you didn't lose a single pound, but you gained one new or better friend? How would that be for you? And we're suggesting that would be some serious life enhancement because we were made for friendship. We talked in our introductory message on this, how it's embedded in the two great works of God, creation and redemption. Friendship is right at the center of those. When God first created the world in all its pristine beauty and perfection, it was all very good except for one thing, right? It was not good for the man to be alone. He needed a companion. Now, of course, he got a wife, which is a very special kind of friend. But we also reminded one another that we're not all made for marriage. Singleness is a perfectly valid way of being, but we're all made for friendship. It wasn't good then, and it's not good today for either a man or a woman to be alone. We're created for friendship. And in redemption, friendship is right at the center of it. Jesus, on the night before he went to the cross, was in the upper room with his closest friends, his disciples. And he said, "Greater love has no one than this, that he lay down his life for his friends." And Jesus said, that's what I'm about to do for you. I'm dying for my friends. And really not just for them, but for the whole world. Redemption is a friendship bid on God's behalf to reconcile with the world. He wants to be your friend. That's a mind-blowing reality. But friendship, it's right there at the heart of creation and redemption. But sadly, in our world today, social scientists tell us that we've been in a decades-long friendship recession. We typically have about half as many friends today as people did just a generation or two ago. And a full 25% of us say, truth be told, I don't really have any friends. Not real friends. Well, we want to remedy that. And that's why we're talking about the wisdom of friendship. And some of the wisdom of friendship is just understanding how important friendship is and then choosing your friends wisely. We all know friends exert a huge influence. Parents especially are concerned about this. In fact, maybe that's why you're a part of our church, because you want your children in our children's ministry or in our student ministry because you want them to have good friends, because you know how important that is. The truth of the matter is, it's even more important and influential than we probably realize. It is stronger and longer, the influence of friends, than we typically appreciate. For example, did you know that you're influenced, and so am I, not only by my friends, but by my friends' friends, and actually by my friends' friends' friends? This has been shown to be true. There are, 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. There are 3 degrees of influence, and there is a discernible influence that we all have on each other 3 degrees out. Our friends' friends' friends actually influence us. It's been shown to be true on political views, on your level of happiness, on whether or not, frankly, you gain or lose weight. Your friends' friends' friends have influence. And it's not only that pervasive, it's long-lasting. Oh my goodness, our friends' influence is not just for this life, but for the life to come. C.S. Lewis famously said in his great essay, The Weight of Glory, "It is a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses, to remember that the dullest and most uninteresting person you talk to may one day be a creature which, if you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship. Or else a horror such as you now meet, if at all, only in a nightmare. All day long, we are, in some degree, helping each other to one or the other of these destinations. We're all," Lewis says, "becoming either immortal horrors or everlasting splendors." And our friends are moving us in one of those directions. So we're talking about it. It matters. And today we want to look at the wisdom literature of the Bible on friendship. It's part of why we call this the wisdom of friendship. We're looking at the wisdom literature. And of course, the Proverbs in the Bible are chock full of great sayings about friendship. In fact, let me read a few to you right here. The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. In the way of righteousness there is life. Along that path is immortality. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. Make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man, lest you learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. This is the word of the Lord, and thanks be to God for it. Well, we're talking first here about choosing friends. Our message title today is Shaped by Friendship. So we want to choose wisely because they're shaping us, we're shaping them. And I was reminded of a statement Andy Stanley made years ago in a book for students, a youth ministry book called 7 Checkpoints. Friendship is one of the big checkpoints of your life. And Stanley said, your friends determine the quality and direction of your life. I think he's right. Your friends determine the quality and direction of your life. And so I want us to just look at friendship today with those two words in mind, quality and direction. Your friends determine the quality of your life. Not whether or not you're living the good life materially, but the quality of the person, character quality. Whether or not you're becoming a truly good and noble and loving and selfless person. Friends have a pervasive influence on that. They're helping to shape us either, as Lewis said, into immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. And then there's the direction. They also help determine the direction of your life. Life direction. What your life is about. What you're doing in the world, why you're here, the purpose of the person. We're all created for a purpose. Multiple purposes, really. And our friends are going to help us to discern and pursue the purposes that God has for us. So let's break it down a little bit further. Let's start with character quality. Friends determine the character quality of your life. Of course, family does this first, but then by adolescence, parents start to give way to friends as primary influencers. And man, it's not just kind of a social reality, it's embedded in our biology. You've all probably heard about mirror neurons. How we all have this propensity to observe what other people are doing or feeling, and then we reflect it right back. Our mirror neurons fire in the same way. And this lasts for a lifetime. It starts obviously in infancy. You coo at a baby and a baby coos back. You smile at a baby, baby smiles back. Baby observes over time you talking in sentences and begins to babble on and on. They see you walking around on 2 feet and they start hoisting themselves up on the coffee table or the couch. They want to walk too. But it's not just in infancy where, the life is being shaped by others. It goes on into old age. We tease my dad. My dad is not a big sports fan, but if there's one thing that he will watch with great interest, it's boxing. He's always been a great boxing fan. Of course, it's not on TV anymore the way it once was, but man, my dad, normally he's a TV guy, and he's got his recliner, he's got the seat back, the feet up, except if it's boxing. Then the chair is forward, he's leaning forward, and my dad watching boxing, he's convulsing and jerking and throwing half punches, and my mom used to walk in the room and go, "How's it going, honey? You winning?" But his mirror neurons were just firing in response to watching boxing. So it happens to babies, happens to old men, happens to all of us in between. Somebody yawns, and something in your brain says, "That's a good idea. I think I'll yawn and get a little more oxygen too." Or, as the saying goes, smile, and the whole world smiles back. We do this. Our behaviors are being shaped by others all the time. In fact, one neuroscientist said this: virtually all intentional human behavior is ultimately mimicked. And behavior matters for character, right? Because behavior shapes character, character shapes behavior. They are mutually reinforcing in either a virtuous or a vicious cycle. And the Proverbs I just read a minute ago really show us what's at stake in our own character development with regard to also who we choose as friends. Righteousness and wickedness is on the line. The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Whether or not we're a wise or foolish person is on the line. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm because he's going to do foolish things. Whether or not you're an angry versus maybe a more patient and gracious person, that's all about friendship. Make no friendship with a man given to anger. You're going to learn his ways and entangle yourself in a snare. And so we want to choose wisely because character is being developed through our friendships. Some of us might need to add or delete some friends. Hey, we don't want to cancel anybody unnecessarily. That's been a great bane to social relationships everywhere. But boy, like people in recovery especially, they know, like if I run with that crowd, they're going to drag me down. I can't stop drinking and using if I'm with that crowd. I got to have some other friends. So we want to make sure that at the core of our social life are godly friends. Not perfect friends. We all stumble in many ways, but God-oriented friends. People who are rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, staggering down the path of Christ. Thomas Brooks, great Puritan preacher and writer 400 years ago said, "Let those be your choicest companions who have made Christ their chief companion." That's a great statement. And, you know, people around here are doing this all the time. I reached out for stories from our body saying, hey, do you got a friend? Love to hear a story. Love to see a picture. And numerous people are writing back. I'm so grateful for this. And let me just share a few stories that I've received recently. You know, Chris Woods, who's brand new to our church, just got involved less than a year ago, is making some great friends. And she writes to tell me especially about one friend, Karen Hamill, who I met at the newcomers group. We now attend church every Sunday together and enjoy going out to lunch after. We've connected in a way that is different from most friends in my life, as we have a lot in common and can relate to difficult situations and circumstances we've encountered. We enjoy raising each other up, building each other up, and being a support for each other without judgment. We generally feel happy in each other's presence, sharing laughter and tears. Most importantly, we're both on the same path of loving Christ and learning more about Him and how He works miracles in our lives. It's awesome. I'm so happy for Chris and for Karen. Kristen Ryan shared a story about how she came to our church 7 years ago, found Christ, made a lot of friends in a lot of different groups that she's gotten involved with. And part of her story, she said, God really made me new. And it started with who I was spending time with. First, all these friends hold the same important Christian values. When it comes to raising our kids, seeking advice, and how we're striving to live, we're all on the same page. Second, she says we're genuine. We care for and show God's love towards each other and our children. We find joy in the company. I love that, just in the presence. And we have understanding in the confusion and empathy in the struggles. It's not always easy in this life, but we have each other. And lastly, she says prayer. No matter what the circumstance, I know I can turn to my friends for guidance and prayer. And then Kristen goes on to tell a story about how one time she was really seeking some wisdom and advice. And one of her friends, all the friend said was like, I'm going to pray for you. And Kristen says, at first I was mad. It's like, I'm not asking you to pray. I'm asking you to tell me what to do. But this wise friend's like, I can't tell you what to do, but I can pray for you. And Kristen says, real quick, she went from angry to calm and actually desiring those prayers. And she came to realize, as she says, it's not always about who has the right tools or biggest Band-Aids to fix things. It's who will show us the righteous path and simply pray. That's the influence of friends on our own character development. Now, those are two women. I want to include some men, and I'm so grateful men have been sharing stories with me as well. One is Stephen Gambita. He shows a picture and says, "These are my friends Dave, Phil, and Alex, whom I met in 2013 after I joined their small group at my former church in Arlington, Virginia. We've been friends ever since. We quickly formed a close bond over our love for Jesus and sports. To this day, we have a group text chain together and talk almost every day of the week. Sometimes I come back to my desk to find over 100 text messages. Those are some exhausting friends. But other than my wife, these friends are the people that I reach for to celebrate the joys of each week, to seek godly wisdom, to ask for prayers, and just about everything else. Says we've shared many meals together and leaned on each other through all our ups and downs over the years. They've seen me at my worst and yet still encourage me, forgive me, and see a better me." That's a great line. There's no conversation off the table in our group, and God is the center of our encouragement and guidance of each other. That's the power of friends. They determine the quality of our life. Now, for those of us who are saying like, okay, I'd like to lean in, make a newer, better friend, but man, one of the things that scares me is like, man, that sounds like kind of way too intimate, maybe too soft, too mushy, too squishy. Let me encourage you on that. You know, C.S. Lewis is really helpful. He writes about friendship and says there's a difference between like friendship and, friends and lovers. Lovers stare at each other face to face. They look into each other's eyes and they love to talk about their relationship and their love. But Lewis says friends, they typically stand shoulder to shoulder. They're looking at a third thing that they both admire and enjoy. There's a thing. Lewis says friendship's always about something. And it typically starts with the observation like, what, you too? I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who was into bird watching or stamp collecting or MMA. You too? And it's that sparks the friendship. Like Stephen said with his guys, we got together over our love for Jesus and sports. Now, Jesus is enough. But if you got Jesus and sports, Jesus and some common life experiences, Jesus and a common struggle, something else that you have in common, all the better. So don't be psyched out that like somehow this becoming better friends is just about staring into each other's eyes and going deep with one another. Some of us aren't naturally wired to do that real easily. It's okay. Observe a third thing. Love a third thing together and you'll start. But now, that being said, a second point. The emotional element of the relationship is massively important. And emotionally attuning to one another is really life-giving, life-shaping. It's healing. We are really made not just for like left-brained processing of factual information, but right-brained feeling of experiential knowing and emotional connection. And our brains are wired in such a way that my right brain wants to connect with your right brain. My emotional centers observe and respond to your emotional centers. That's why, some people can either raise the temperature in a room or lower it just by their very presence. And when we attune emotionally to each other, where we know one another and we know that we're known, when we feel with one another and we feel felt, that has a massive life-shaping influence. One of the things I love about AA and the recovery movement, they're wonderful at like distilling down truths into pithy sayings. And there's an AA saying that I just heard recently that goes like this: we're all here because we're not all there. That's a great, we're all here in this room because, hey, we're not all there. We don't have it all together. We're not all there upstairs. We don't know what we're all doing in life. We know we can't go it alone. We're all here because we're not all there. But it's that very thing where you're in that room together, knowing and being known, feeling each other and feeling felt by each other, that, you begin to become whole and healed and well integrated and emotionally resilient, and you become the kind of person that can provide that good influence on others. So it's important to give some attention to the emotional side of life. I mean, one of the ways to do it, I heard this recently, the 3 rules of relationship. You know, like in real estate, the 3 rules of real estate: location, location, location. The 3 rules of relationship: observation, observation, observation. Here's how you start. You just observe. You observe the people around you. You know, observe their posture, their tone of voice, their energy. You can tell whether they're up or whether they're down. And then by observing that, you just begin to enter it. It's like the Bible tells us to, weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. So we just observe, and it's like, hey, you seem really cheery today. What's going on? You're happy. And now I'm eager and interested to enter into that happiness and to reinforce it, right? Friends, have our troubles and double our joys. Or you observe, it's like, hey, you seem a little down today. What's going on? You want to talk about it? And just the beginning of that attunement starts to forge the bonds of life shaping, quality of life developing friendship. It starts in infancy, right? Kurt Thompson says, babies come into the world seeking for someone seeking them. Babies come into the world looking for someone looking for me. They cry. They're in distress alone. And they're basically pinging the world. Is there anybody out there who will see me and who will soothe me? And of course, parent comes and picks that baby up and like, yes, the world is a good place. The world is a safe place. And it's through the emotional attunement and responsiveness of parents that babies develop secure attachment. And then they're going to be able, from that place of secure attachment, emotional resilience, they can launch out into life. It continues on all throughout our lives. We never stop entering a room looking for somebody looking for us. People come to church. Without articulating it, they're probably wondering, like, is anybody here going to see me? Is anybody here going to respond to me? Would anybody here even delight in me just to see me and to be glad that I'm here? If they experience that when they come to church, that's a good Sunday. Forget whether or not the music or the sermon is any good that Sunday. Just that attachment, that makes Sunday worth it. Of course, on the other hand, if they come in and nobody sees me, then they might quickly conclude this is not the church for me. So our attunement to one another, our observation matters. We can do this. We can help one another along. We can develop secure, attached character in one another and become people who are that and able to provide that for others. So it just starts there. Now, that's character quality. Let's talk briefly about direction. Life direction. Your friends determine the direction of your life. And for this point, I just want to read a few more Proverbs. Listen to this. Anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers it up. The purposes of a person's heart are deep waters. One who has insight draws them out. Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice. Whether you're anxious about the future, perplexed about your purpose in life, or just in a quandary how to respond to this problem that's suddenly emerged, we all need some direction in life, and we're going to get that from good friends. A friend's going to help us. They're going to help determine the direction of our lives. We're going to get by with a little help from our friends, or maybe with a lot of help from our friends. And I love how friends are doing that for each other in our body. I read a moment ago about Stephen Gambita and his good friends. Part of the story that he told that I didn't read, he talks about how across the last 8 or 9 years that these guys have been friends, they've helped each other through breakups, lymphoma in one of their spouses, strained family relationships, job changes, dating, marriage. all the big stuff of life. These friends have helped people navigate those, given some guidance and direction through these things. How vitally important for all of us. So often we just don't know what to do, and we need some others to help us to discern it. But it's not just how to respond, say, to, what's outside of us, the problems that have come at us, but our friends are going to help us discern our own hearts, our own purposes, our own gifts, our own best contributions to the world. I love how Stephen said that his friends, even though they've seen the worst of him, they also see a better me. They see my strengths too, not just my weaknesses. And this is one of the great helps of friends, because friends are on the receiving end of us. I know myself from my own perspective, but I need the reflection of others to know how I come across to people. I have my own intentions. They might not be the impact. I need people to reflect back to me how they experience me. There's great Proverbs 27:19. The Hebrew is a little enigmatic, but one translation is, as water reflects the face, so others reflect your heart back to you. Others help you see your own heart, what God's put in your heart, the identity that resides at the heart of you, the purpose of your heart, God's purpose placed in your heart. And when others see that and affirm that and call that out, that is truly life-shaping. Now, I was thinking recently of, back in my early years of youth ministry. I think it was actually my very first year as a full-time junior high youth pastor. I'm in my early 20s. And our whole team, not only pastoral staff, but some of our elders, went to a big church conference put on in suburban Chicago by this ginormous, influential megachurch. Leader of that church was a huge hero of mine and of all of us. And we're sitting there. We're in a couple of rows in a seating section. And this pastor is up there speaking. And I remember behind me, Dale Frank, the chairman of our elder board at one point, just leans down, taps me on the shoulder, and whispers in my ear and says, "I see a lot of him in you." Do you know how life-giving that was to me? I'm just so green in ministry. I don't know what I'm doing yet. But you see a lot of him in me? You see some of me in him? Oh my goodness. That gave me some sense of I think I'm doing what God has made me to do. And the reason I remembered that story is because I had almost a similar circumstance just a few months ago. Now, 38 years into ministry, it's amazing how even when you've been doing this long, doubts can arise. Sometimes you get some negative feedback that would suggest to you whatever anointing maybe used to be on you isn't on you anymore. Whatever moved people to want to follow you in the past, it ain't making us want to follow you today. And you start to wonder, do I still got it? Is God still with me? So I'm at this pastor's conference down in Texas back in the fall. It's being led by Ray Ortland. He's my latest hero in ministry. I just love everything about Ray Ortland and how he speaks and what he writes. And there's a room of us there, just about 30 pastors from all over the country, but mostly from Texas. And we're doing this retreat together, just a little 2-day retreat. And at one point, Ray says, I want to do something. And I knew he's done this before in places. I've never experienced it, but it's you just take turns affirming another person. Hey, all of us, we get plenty of negative feedback in life. Let's affirm some things in one another. And he said, this is what I want to do. We're just one person start, affirm something you see in another man in the room. And then having been affirmed, it's now your turn and you affirm somebody else. So eventually we're going to work through all 30 of us. Well, it wasn't but 2 or 3 people in that a person affirms Ray Ortland. And not surprising that they chose him. We're all there because we're part of the Ray Ortland fan club. And so this person affirms Ray Ortland. And of course, all of us in our hearts are saying, yes, we would say the same thing and more. But now it's Ray's turn. And Ray picked me. I don't know why. We had just met not that long ago. It's only spent a few hours in each other's presence, talked for a little while over lunch. But Ray picked me. and spoke some life-giving words into me. And as a 60-year-old man, they're helping to shape the direction of my life. The influence is that critical, young and old. In fact, I'll share one more story as I draw toward a close. I did not know this. Well, I knew this. You know that J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were friends. I did know that. You've probably heard of this group called the Inklings. These writers and academics who used to get together, they were just a band of brothers, just friends. What I did not know is that Tolkien actually credits Lewis with him writing and publishing Lord of the Rings. I did not know this, but as the story is told, back in their day, in the earlier part of the 20th century, fantasy stories were only for children. Like Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia, really children's books. Nobody was writing fantasy for adults, but Tolkien was doing it. And he was writing these things, he was kind of all captivated by it, and he was into it as his own art form. Didn't necessarily ever think that he would A, finish it, or B, publish it. But Lewis helped him. It was after Lewis died that Tolkien paid him tribute. And he said, the unpayable debt that I owe to him, Lewis, was not influence as it is ordinarily understood, but sheer encouragement. He was, for a long time, my only audience. Only from him did I ever get the idea that my stuff could be more than a private hobby. But for his interest and unceasing eagerness for more, I should not have brought Lord of the Rings to conclusion. What a gift Lewis is through Tolkien. One of the greatest series of books ever written. And the amazing thing about Lord of the Rings is it's really all about friendship. How a band of very diverse friends are used to defeat evil and restore shalom to Middle Earth. It's really just a reflection of this true story of this world, of human history here. Of course, Jesus himself defeats sin and death by his crucifixion and resurrection. But Jesus has not restored all of Middle Earth all by himself. No, he continues to defeat evil and restore lives through us. It's bound up in our very mission statement as a church. We exist to love God, love each other, and love the world that Jesus, through his people, is working to restore. But now, in light of what we've been talking about, I see our mission in slightly different terms. Yes, we exist to love God and to love each other so that we can effectively love the world that Jesus, through his people, is working to restore. We're not going to love the world well and bring gospel restoration to it unless we love him and love one another really well, like forge new friendships, like make one new or better friend this year. That's not only going to be good for us, it's going to be good for the whole world. So let's do it. Let's lean in, let's pursue it, let's take some initiative, and let's make this year a banner year. God be with you.
Thanks for checking out our online teaching. If you enjoyed this content and would like some more information about us, head over to our website at www.willowdalechapel.org or download our app. There you can stay up to date on any events, ministries, and other opportunities we have coming up at Willowdale Chapel.